Hello and welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people. And we were just having a spectacular grounded conversation that we are going to continue right now for all of you to hear with the amazing Rachael Cohen. I said that right, correct?
Yes, you did. Thank you,
Yes. Hi,
KristaLyn.
Rachael.
Thank you, Emily. Hi. So good to be here with you both. And yeah, I like as soon as we came on together, I was like, can I ask you guys a question?
It was so good. Could
We
literally go
embrace
on about that.
questions. Yeah.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
good.
Yeah,
And
please
I
ask.
embrace having both of you in front of me at the same time that we can have a conversation. So I went in, I mean, we're going to talk about my book, which I'm excited about,
Yes.
but when I saw Emily and KristaLyn, I just felt this intuitive hit to ask a question about what they're seeing, like the forecast for humans and religion and like kind of like religiosity moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Religiosity. We've kind of discussed this at length on here, and to not
Yeah.
get too far off topic, we kind of
Yeah.
have talked about just the deconstruction of organized religion and the refocusing of individualized base, like Krista calls it Captain Planet style religion, where we're all coming together to help each other understand things based on our own unique intuitive channeling. Which I am fully on board with and completely agree with that energy coming in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a time, and the astrology supports this, and I'll go into it in probably a YouTube video at some other time. Specifically this week with the Uranus and Taurus conjunction coming up. I think that's going to be a hallmark in this movement. But I'm so for people from all faith backgrounds and belief foundations coming together and saying, hey, I have this road that leads to the source.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this person wants to walk my road, but you have this road that leads to whatever the source is for them, and they'll walk on your road. And our powers combined get everybody to where they need to be. And therefore, we are a team and a family. And my
Yeah.
biggest focus with, earning my master's degree in divinity, I often ask my guides, why the heck do you have me studying Christianity in such a deep way? And it's because I think Christianity needs to become part of the circular conversation a little bit more. So I want to be as educated as possible to get back into the circle, to jump out of the middle and let somebody else jump in the middle and dance a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the more educated a person is on why they understand or believe something, or even why they don't believe things. I will certify myself in the stuff that I don't trust just as much as I certify myself in the things I do trust. And I do the certification so that I can build that level of trust. And I think that we all deserve that path. And even on this call, you can feel that circle of energy where anybody can come into this space and find an answer from somebody who is ready to meet them and guide them and walk alongside them, but not tell them what to think. Those
Mm-hmm.
spiritual critical thinking skills that Raquel, you brought up so beautifully, are so needed and will be the best tool moving forward.
Amen.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
So, on that note, let's talk
So
about your
speaking of
book.
Captain
So, if
Planet,
yeah, longtime
Yes, Captain
listeners will
Planet.
longtime listeners will know Raquel has been here before. We have hung out before on this podcast together, which is amazing. We're so happy to have you back. You're coming back because you have a really powerful new book coming out, and we immediately jumped at the chance to talk to you about it. So, could you please tell us all, what is the book about? What are we doing with that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me back. It's such an honor to be here with you both. I
Yeah.
truly adore the way that you present information. I love the way that you also have your own levels of expertise and come together. I remember last time I was on, I got the image of you guys working together like a well-oiled machine, like the cogs and the wheels. And like, I still feel that from the both of you. So thank you and your partnership and the way that you bring that forward. Okay, so me, Aries, we're still in Aries season,
everybody,
right?
Raquel is a Cancer, primarily in the chart. And so there's a lot of like, let's talk about you. Let's be a family. But Raquel, we are here to centralize and shine some light on you. So please do tell us
Thank you.
more.
Thank you. So I have a new book out. It's called Self-Care for Eco-Anxiety. And don't let the title like scare you off. This is a book to help you reconnect with the love of Mother Earth, reconnect with the love you feel for Earth, the love you feel from Earth, and come back to a connected, creative, and reciprocal relationship with yourself and with the planet. That's what this book is all about. So while this isn't a book that's going to provide you with all the solutions to climate change and environmental destruction, many of the self-care practices in here share with you that there are so many solutions available to us that we already know about and that are already being implemented. While this isn't a book that's all about, reducing your carbon footprint, which is kind of a little bit of BS anyway. We can talk more about that. But while this book isn't about like shaming and blaming you into reducing your carbon footprint, it will definitely give you self-care practices that allow you to have a bit of a greener footprint on Earth. But again, this is really a book about reclaiming a loving relationship with nature, reclaiming a loving relationship with yourself. Because the truth is that how we feel as we address the challenges in front of us, it matters. How we feel matters. Our mental health matters. Our energy matters. And if we want to create a future that is sustainable, that is harmonious, that is peaceful, that is reciprocal, we need to embody those energies in ourselves first and foremost. So this is a book about changing our consciousness, because with that change of consciousness, with our relationship with Earth, then sustainable living is truly our only option, because we can no longer be accepting of the way we have been treating this amazing planet we're lucky enough to call home. So that's what this book is all about. Yeah.
That
What
felt
a
like
high vibe
meditation
way.
in itself.
Right. I was just going to say, like, what a high vibe way to address the climate issue that's happening. Like, I mean, I agree. There's a lot of shaming and blaming right now. And the biggest thing I think that keeps coming up with the climate stuff is a lot of finger pointing, where people are like, well, no, it's the corporations that are problem. And the corporations are like, no, it's the government. And everyone's like, don't throw away your yogurt containers. I mean, like, it's like,
Yep.
it's just this cycle of no one taking responsibility and everyone pointing it. And when you do try to take responsibility, it's like biting off of like 100-pound cookie that you're never going to be able to eat. It's just so much stuff there. So I think that is a really high vibe way of being like, hey, let's focus on it as a self-care and connection to self and planet in a spiritual sort of beautiful cyclical sort of sense, instead of this, these are the practices you're doing that are making you an earth killer, because that's not helpful to anyone. I really love that approach.
Yep. And I just want to share with you, if you haven't had a chance to see the book yet, it just came out last week, so we're right on in. But just based on what you just shared, Emily, my very first sentence of the book is Earth is not dying. That's
My first son
literally
just sang.
literally the first sentence of the book. And the reason that is because it took me a while. Like my first, both of you have written books, so you guys know what it feels like when you're like looking at that blank page and you're like, no pressure, first sentence of your book, no pressure. And I like was writing these paragraphs of my own experiences, and then I was like, no, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. And then it just came to me, Earth is not dying. And as soon as I got that sentence out, I was like, right? Like, oh, everything came out.
Yeah, no, that's a powerful first sentence. Actually, one of the exercises we do in the Forgotten Storytellers when we're at retreat is we have everyone share their first sentence, and it's one of our favorite experiences in the entire writing program, because this first sentence, like, it's one of this beautiful, like, it's such a rooted, it's the grounding of your book, right? It is the grounding of the entire book. It anchors into that first sentence. Not to put pressure on anyone who's trying to write a book out there. It will get there, we promise. Do not sit there and panic. Yes. But
your book
is like open, right? Your book is not dying. Open any of your favorite books though, and read that first sentence. It grounds the entire experience of reading that book if it's done well. And I love the emphasis on that and the illustration of that experience. So I will agree. And just to talk on that too, Earth is not dying. If anything, humans are dying. Earth is kicking great. Like,
that's exactly my first paragraph.
Right
there.
Cool.
Like, there's totally a strategy for that too.
Of course you do. Which is why we love you, KristaLyn.
It's everywhere. No, but it makes me think of, Earth is not dying. Her voice is a little suppressed. And like when we shut up for a minute, like we did in 2020, to call back to that, all of a sudden you find Earth starts singing and inviting you in and saying, hey, can we be friends again? And immediately we were like, no. And as soon as we had the ability to go outside again, we shut all of that connection down. That invitation is what it really felt like. I think, Rachael, that was when you and I first connected.
Yeah.
And I remember geeking out then as I do now about how like there were dolphins in the Venice canals come on. Like we had this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing, this beautiful integration of all life coming together to cooperate and coexist. And we were just like, no, go away.
Some of us,
Some of us,
Mm-hmm.
some
many
of
of us
us.
would prefer not to have that happen. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I agree with both of you. The Earth is not dying. In fact, from my perspective, Earth is more alive
Mhm.
and actually louder in some ways now than she's been probably for most of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like what we're seeing when it comes to earthquakes, volcanoes. I mean, the storms and the droughts is more climate associated, which is
Mhm.
nature, not necessarily Earth. But what we're seeing from
Mm-hmm.
Earth herself, to me, what I get from it is I am very much awake and
Mhm.
alive. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I'm waking up even more now because I can
Mm-hmm.
feel this damage that's being done to me, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that Earth still very much loves us. And I know when I was dealing with eco anxiety back 10 years ago, I did not feel like we were lovable. I did not feel like we humans deserved to be here on Earth. And I did not feel like we were loved.
Mhm.
And I felt
Mm-hmm.
like we didn't deserve to be loved. I have a different approach now that I've learned how to work with energy, now that I've learned how to make intuitive connection, to listen to the actual guidance coming from, Mama Gaia, from Earth herself, from the
Mhm.
mycelium network, from the trees, from the critters, right? Like when you can make this connection and have conversation with these other sentient beings, it changes things so much for you. But I truly believe that if Earth didn't love us and she didn't think we were deserving to be here, we would not be here anymore. It wouldn't be that hard for her. Like it
At
really
all.
wouldn't.
Mhm.
Like a couple of earthquakes, a couple of volcanoes, and a tidal wave here. That, again, I don't want this to sound like not
It's
that any of
not.
this is
No,
going to
you're good.
happen, and not to sound
Yeah.
like it wouldn't be a terrible thing. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the fact that we're here, to
Mm-hmm.
me, is proof that we are loved and we are still seen as her children. And sometimes parents who are listening, sometimes we have to tough love our kids so that
Mhm.
they understand action, consequence,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
accountability, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we were talking about at the start of our conversation too, from understanding accountability, even from the standpoint of like spiritual connection, religious connection. But what about accountability when it comes to the standpoint of our connection to Earth,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
our accountability as humans, as consumers on this planet? And that's another thing. I spent over 10 years working in environmental education at places like Monterey Bay Aquarium, San Diego Zoo, organizations that really walk the walk, right? Like that are
Mm-hmm.
really not just out there to, well, these are nonprofit organizations, so they're not out there to make money at all. They are out there to bring people in to learn about habitats, to learn about organisms, right? But they're
Mm-hmm.
really out there to change policy, to change what's happening out on the ground, which
Mm-hmm.
felt really, really wonderful. That being said, the years I spent working in environmental education, I also dealt with a lot of anxiety, a lot of insomnia, a lot of depression. I was on anti-anxiety medication. I often need to be using sleeping aids because I was dealing with a lot of eco anxiety or existential fear of like persistent existential fear of environmental destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And first and foremost, I just want to state that if anyone feels that way, if anyone is feeling anxiety, depression, rage, anger, grief over what's happening to our planet, please know, first and foremost, you're not alone. And second of all, you're not crazy. Like it's such a sane response to what is happening. The
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
fact that we are continuously living a lifestyle that is killing off our ability to live on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
that's insane. Like the
Yes.
behavior that we are doing is insane.
Mhm.
To feel a certain way about our behavior is a very sane response.
Yeah.
And we can't end there. We can't stop there. Our emotions, our feelings, they are data points. It's information. And that information wants to lead us somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about eco anxiety, where does it actually want to lead us to? It wants to lead us back to reciprocal relationship with Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, so many millions of us, literally millions of us, I think maybe even billions of us at this point, know this,
Mhm.
own
Yeah.
this, want this, already live this.
Yeah. I think it's first of all, incredibly valuable thing to say. Like and to understand about our journey is to get past the anxiety and fear. You actually have to feel it and
Yeah.
experience it and understand that it's logical and rational and then move on from there. So I think that's beautiful. And I also think there's a really interesting balancing because we talked about this in our Egypt retreat recently. Like we're 50% made of earth. That's what the body is. It is literally made of the earth. The soul that comes into the body is a different part of the consciousness,
Yeah.
but the body is the part that's uncomfortable. And so we want to ignore and put that aside as much as possible. And the more you ignore and put that aside, your body, then the more you're ignoring the earth. And that's where the cycle really starts to spin and get out of there. So you saying it is a form of self-care, again, as a form of connecting with the body, is naturally going to connect you more with the earth because you are connecting with the part of you that embodies the earth energy that is literally of the planet. Which I think is incredible and a beautiful focus for right now. One other thing I just wanted to mention too, I just as a personal experience with eco anxiety to kind of mirror your own, that I was born and raised in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
Everything in this town revolves around conserving the environment, and it has my entire life, and it has
Yeah.
the entire time that Tahoe has been a town. It's been around preserving the lake. We have 99.8% clarity. One more percent, and that is the bottled water clarity. It is a clear because everyone protects it. Everyone is constantly protecting it. We're always looking out for it. You can't paint your house pink because it detracts from the environment. Like everything is constantly around conservation. We haven't had like disposable anything here for 15 years. I don't think it's all either, biodegradable, or you have to ask for it, or you have to pay extra for it, that kind of thing. Because it's super, we just got rid of single-use plastic bottles this year, like the whole thing. It's just normal for us. So then when I became an adult and went other places, it terrified me. I got like serious panic issues because other places aren't geared around that. And I was like, what do you mean? Where are your trees? It freaked me out. It made me really uncomfortable. And then you get through it and you feel it and you realize, as an adult. But I do think that's part of that kind of growing element that all of us feel in some way. It's the process of maturing into an adult, but from the earth perspective. And I think that is also really unique and beautiful that you're sharing.
Yeah. And I think it's
Mhm.
it's such a natural reaction for us. And if you think even back to, we're talking about the body, and I know a lot of people are going to feel detached to that because somehow spirituality separates itself from the body so much. But if you look at almost every creation myth, we're made of clay, or we're made of dirt, or we're made of
Made
earth.
of the earth. Yeah.
So really, it is, like you said, it's a celebration and a connection of us truly, literally, directly
Yeah.
to remember that we wouldn't exist without it in any capacity, whether you're thinking scientifically or spiritually or physically.
Oh my
And
gosh. Yeah.
I came from a town that was the polar opposite of where like our creek was called a crick, and they rhymed another word with it that I won't say that didn't actually rhyme with it, if you know what I mean. And the failed attempts to clean the crick that to this day are still not successful, and it's like a little trickle of a thing, and we don't have that. There was never any connection. My biggest awareness of earth as a Taurus sun was when they gave us a little free tree on Earth Day, and I don't even know whatever happened to those trees because I don't remember planting them. So it's this disconnect where humanity has so much shelter that we've sheltered ourselves from reason and truth when it comes to nature.
Yeah. I have so much I want to speak to both of what you guys just shared.
Obviously, you
Well,
wrote
first
a
of all,
book about it.
I mean, I love what you mentioned about like the body being earth, right? Like, yes, our soul is like pure light from the star, but even earth has star, like carbon comes from
Everything.
space. Like, all of it
Yeah.
comes from outer space,
They
like
formed
earth
of space
itself.
stuff.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
earth was made from space dust too, right?
Mhm.
Um, Also, just in my background, I'm from a Jewish family. I'm not religious at all, but I was raised very, very religious. And in Jewish folklore, I don't know, you might have heard of this, KristaLyn, because I know you love folklore, but there's this concept of the golem, which was that like
Mm-hmm.
Kabbalists could create these like protector beings out of mud,
Yep.
literally mud. And like
Mm-hmm.
it was very popular in folklore from like Eastern Europe, that part of our diaspora. Anyway, I thought that was fascinating. But I also really want to speak to this like being in the body and the body being of earth, because as someone who teaches intuition, which I know both of you do as well, if
Mm-hmm.
we forego our relationship with our body, we are diminishing our intuitive connection, because so much of our intuition, so much of the way spirit connects and communicates through us comes through the body.
Mm-hmm.
Sensations in the body, different parts of the body lighting up. And so when I teach intuition, I spend 2 weeks teaching about the nervous system, teaching about interoception, teaching about getting to a ventral vagal state, which is what raising your vibe actually is, finding that place of calm, centered presence, not love and lighting yourself out of reality,
Mm-hmm.
finding presence in this now moment. That's what raising your vibe actually is, right? So if we try, even in our spiritual endeavors, to leave the body behind, whether it's your physical body or earth, you're
Mm-hmm.
leaving behind half of what you are. How can you ever embody yourself fully? How can you ever integrate fully when you're not even allowing yourself to experience half of what you are, right?
Yeah. No, correct. Absolutely correct. Absolutely. And I so that kind of leads me to the next question, because I want you to speak to this, even though I know we could all just like go off on it. Why do you feel right now is the perfect time for the book? Why do you think right now is the perfect time to have written it and to get it into people's hands?
Well, the timing, I mean, in some ways, the timing is perfect because it is, right? Like it just
Yeah,
is what it
I know.
is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about this book is I didn't pitch this book. My publishing house pitched this book to me. And they were like, we
Ooh.
want you to write this book, which is why I have a book that come out like so quickly after my last one, like literally a year
Yeah.
later.
So I just want to
That's
say, for those of you
That's
who
huge.
are listeners, that we own a publishing company. That's like unheard of. That doesn't
Awesome.
typically happen. So I just want to throw that in there like, God damn, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
And we all
Who's your
get a
publishing
moment
house,
of
by the way?
celebration and recognition.
yeah, Hardy Grant Books.
Hardy Grant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
they just got bought by Penguin Random House like a few months ago. So, but they're still a smaller
Mhm.
boutique underneath the larger. But yeah, I mean, it was a crazy thing. I was pitching a totally different book to my editor, a book on intuition. And she's like, great, love it. And this topic is, I mean, it's so terrible to say it like this, but like eco anxiety is trending.
Oh,
No,
Because because it is.
yeah.
it
Because
is.
the planet's going, ah, people. And so people are
Yeah.
going, ah,
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. And yes, it's the
Please,
planet,
anybody
but
watch the video version of this.
it's also people. Like I think now is the right time because we're in a time of awakening.
Yeah.
And I see climate change and I see what we're doing to the planet as a part of our spiritual awakening. I think what's happening to our planet is, yes, it's a, action consequence, but if we want to remember that life isn't about a destination, it's about the journey itself. The journey that we're on is letting us know, hey, this rugged individualism, this idea of production at all cost, this lack of remembrance of interconnection, this ain't it. This ain't it,
Mhm.
people. Right. And so just as we're having war, just as we're having terrible like stereotyping of other people, more polarization. All of this is happening, not in a vacuum. All of this is happening in the backdrop of a shift in climate and terrible environmental stewardship.
Mhm.
All of this is to help us remember who we actually are, why we're actually here, and how we're actually all connected.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yeah.
now.
And it's an interesting point too, that many of our wars and battles begin over land and resources, which
Mhm.
goes back to nature.
Yeah. Yes, I'm
That
going to push
and
back on
other
that a
biases
little
that
bit.
are
Yeah.
awful.
I think
Um, yeah.
I think that we say it's over lands and resources, but I
Mhm.
think we actually fight wars over ideas.
a lot. Well, and I think that's going to increase. One of the things that I was hearing resonate in the keywords that you were using was the transition of the era of Pluto and Capricorn to Pluto and Aquarius.
Yes.
And the fact that at the same time we've had Uranus going through Taurus, revolutionizing natural resources and nature and our connection to that, with Jupiter, especially in the last year, bringing our spirituality and our personal judgment into play as well, to connect with Uranus there and say, hey, we need to do something and update this. We need like a cultural revolution for it. And then your book comes out almost to lead the way, which is really cool.
No, well, thank you. I mean, I think part of it also, you know, were the call to raise the voice of Indigenous leaders, elders. That is also part of this. In fact, one of the self-care practices I share in the book, because the book is 52 self-care practices, and the way I have it organized is the first 18 self-care practices are all about just connection with nature, recognizing that nature is everywhere. Nature is you, right? So even spending more intentional time with yourself is reconnecting with nature. So not like you don't have to go off grid. If you can, great, but you don't have to take yourself away from your daily routine to have connection with nature. It's everywhere. And then the following 18 practices are all about co-creation with nature, because that was my story. When I was able to create, when I was able to connect with nature in a really creative way, it resolved that my anxiety in a way that the anti-anxiety medication wasn't doing, talk therapy wasn't doing, but sitting and making succulent art was like, for my brain and my body, like literally.
Yeah. I literally got a ping this week of starting a whole like giant herb garden because it's going to help calm things down or something. Like there was a big ping of like showing me everything I needed. I went out to Target, I bought soil and a trowel and like all the things I'm going to be starting with this weekend.
Yeah, and I have herb garden in here, like starting your own herb garden as one of the activities for co-creation. And then the final 18 practices are about giving back to earth. And I did this really strategically because, as we mentioned earlier, we don't need to increase people's feelings of shame or guilt or blame when it comes to their relationship with the environment. And so when I wanted people to come back to a reciprocal, loving relationship with earth, I felt really important that first we connect. We come back to a place of connection. Then we co-create and we recognize this is a give and take, right? Like we're in relationship, we're in conversation. And then from that place, we just naturally want to give back, just like we would in any loving relationship. Any loving relationship. And I think about the heart chakra from this because I'm an energy worker. So I go to that. And the energy of the heart chakra is unconditional love. And unconditional love is giving and taking, both. If we overgive, we create an imbalance. If we overtake, we create an imbalance. It's the recognition that when we are in a place of alignment and of unconditional love, our giving is the same as our taking. And I see that represented in breath, which is why one of the self-care practices I share for giving back is breath work with plants. Something as simple as going outside and breathing with plants, or inside if you have plants inside. That's actually an act of giving back if we do it intentionally, if we do it with the prayer, with the intent of feeding the plants every time we breathe and breathing in their love every time we breathe in, right? Like even that is what our relationship with nature is supposed to be. But going back to that connection and the wisdom of the indigenous people, the last self-care practice I share, it's self-care practice 18. It's called Connect with Your Indigenous Roots. And there's twofold ways of doing this. First and foremost, what is your own family's legacy? Every single human is indigenous to Earth. You can trace back to wherever, and I think that's important, especially with some of the verbiage we hear going on right now. Like every human who lives on Earth belongs here on Earth. But that being said, it's cool to know your own legacy, but then even more important is to do a little research into the legacy of your land to see how has this land been stewarded over time, because I think modern society has us believing that the only way we can live with the comforts we currently have is to be this destructive. But if we go back and look back at some of the history and be like, wait, actually humans lived in harmony with Earth in pretty comfortable ways for many hundreds of thousands of years, that actually opens up a whole level of possibility that I don't think most people are in right now. So Yes, it's also respecting the people who came before you, understanding that, but it's also understanding what's possible for the land, what
Yeah.
once was and what can be again in some
Mhm.
capacity.
Well, I also love that too. As someone who, as a kid was not someone with a green thumb and is
Yeah.
approaching planting things with this whole like fear of rejection almost from plants, right? If
Rejection.
you,
Oh,
I know, right? If you
Krista.
go and you plant the native stuff though,
Mhm.
then you have a higher success rate because you're
Yeah.
planting what will thrive. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily, again, I was planting these random pine trees that I just got from school, right? And if they didn't grow, I didn't know what was going on. We just didn't have a lot of plants in the house. So it could be though that what you're planting needs to be planted where it can thrive, like we
Yeah.
are. And when you can learn that from planting the right things and realize that it's a two-way street, planting the thing where it can thrive and also taking care of the thing, it's a really
Mhm.
huge spiritual and just philosophical realization.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do have a couple of
And
self-care practices that are all about like planting natives for pollinators.
Mhm.
In fact, in the
Mhm.
give back section, I have one that I think you would really like. It's like more of a guerrilla gardening one where and this is great to do with kids, but you get some native wildflower seeds and you just kind of make them into a little ball with a little bit of like wet paper and some mud, not mud, soil. You just
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
put it in a ball and then you just throw it into like an abandoned field somewhere.
I want
I
to
actually
make
have
my niece and
one
nephew
of the
so
house that me
badly.
and the girls are gonna make some. We already have
Yeah.
some nice weeds. I don't really like using that term, but
Mhm.
like
No.
um
Mhm.
wild
Wildflowers?
plants are growing there
Yeah.
already.
What I will say is make sure that your wildflower seed is actually
Yes.
native. That is super
Yes.
huge because a
Mhm.
lot of times people will be like, it's native to this, and like
Yeah.
then it has a ton of invasive species in it. My dad's a plant biologist. That's his job. So like
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about like local ecology in that way.
Yeah.
So that would be my only caveat. I think that's an amazing, a fantastic idea. Just be sure that it's actually native
Yeah.
plants.
Yeah.
Do the
Yeah. Which
research.
can be
Yeah.
hard, but the best place to find that is to actually go to your local greenhouses, not like the big
Mhm.
box, not Home Depot, not Lowe's, but like an
Mhm.
actual, like smaller
Yeah.
local greenhouse. They're going to tend to have better local native seeds than the big
Hmm.
box store as well,
Mhm.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that,
Yeah.
because I know people are going to wonder. That's like the
Yeah.
first question that always comes to mind is how do I find what should be natural here?
I
And
know.
you almost have to, go through the proverbial weeds to find those.
Yeah. You can also
Mhm.
look to some of the pollinator organizations because often they have
Hmm.
great resources to suppliers of local plants, especially for the pollinators you want to call in. So that's another
Yeah.
good resource for it.
Very
Or
cool.
get in touch with Emily because she's got her dad who can.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to open that. You'll get so many Latin names of plants that you don't need. I promise. My dad is incredible. He's still, even though he's almost 70 years old, is actively still working as a landscape
Yeah.
contractor for the basin. And he always is like, what natural wildflowers? And he like comes in. And when we were kids, again, I was born and raised up here, so this is very normal. But even when we would go on like road trips and stuff, we would go to no less than two arboretums every single time, or two like plant conservatories, or the Conservatory of Flowers, or whatever it is, every trip we did, because it was like, let's go look at the plants. So I've seen so many really interesting plants from so many different places because of that. But yeah, so I wouldn't recommend my dad as a resource because he'll just go off. But I will say, be really passionate about your local plants. It means so much to you. It gives you a sense of identity of the area that you're inhabiting.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that's supposed to be there, and like it cultivates a really unique relationship with that. And also I will say, like, you can also look for people who are local foragers or who publish a lot on foraging locally,
Mhm.
whether that is like just doing videos online where they talk about foraging or whatever. That is also a way of decolonizing a lot of our belief systems around the earth, because a lot of the reason that we don't know what's edible and what is not edible is because of capitalism. It's because of racism. Like that has like this whole long rooted thing. So
Yeah.
if you're like, what can I eat around here? And you actually look for people who are local foragers who have that information around your area, that's another really powerful way to kind of heal that relationship too, and figure out what you can plant as well, because then you
Yeah.
understand more of what's local there.
Well, and if you're lucky enough, privileged enough to have some of your own land, also
Hmm.
planting food
Mhm.
Yeah.
forests, that's a big thing. That, might not always be the local things that you're going to plant for food
Uh-huh.
source, but you can also supplement with local wildflowers to bring in the local pollinators, right? So you can still maintain a lot of local species in that. But I think it's important to kind of get a little bit closer with food production. So some of the co-creation self-care practices I share are all about, like planting herbs, planting a fruit tree, planning
Mm-hmm.
out a garden, even just planning one, not even going through the act of creating one, even just going through the act of researching and planning one is so connective with
Mm-hmm.
your habitat, your seasons, your growing zone, all of
Mm-hmm.
that. And my my way of liking to grow food is a little bit like hands off. I like to plant and then let things go crazy and like very
Mm-hmm.
organic. And it's for me, it's kind of fun because it also speaks to kind of what KristaLyn was mentioning before with, oh, well, what's actually going to take, what isn't going to take, what for me, it's really interesting to note what are some plants that tend to really love my environment and go crazy, some that maybe die back, because for me, that's actually a conversation with Earth. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, in my garden right now, borage is going off. And I need to get out there and clip some more and make myself a little tincture and start making teas because borage is so good for as a nervine and for mental health, especially when you're in a point where maybe you're holding yourself to really, really high expectations that you're not meeting, right? Like, and you're just really hard on yourself, which I can tend to do sometimes. And so to go into my garden and see my borage just going off is like, okay, Earth, I hear you. Yes, I will make a tea today. I will.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you telling me this is the medicine I need right now. And
Mm-hmm.
then for me too, like in our gardens, we've planted 2 avocado trees. We have passion flower vines, a fig tree. And so for me, I love planting something that will go through its own seasons of production and dormancy. First of all, the sustainability of not having to plant something every single year. But then again, I live in San Diego, so I'm lucky enough to have like growing season all year round.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone lives in different areas. But just to also be in alignment with those seasons of productivity and dormancy. Like, for example, I have been feeling for months like my soul and my body's like, you need to go dormant, my friend. And I'm just like, okay, after book launch, I promise. So
Mm-hmm.
in a few weeks, it's actually perfect for Taurus season, KristaLyn, but like I am literally like, I need to like plant myself. Like I am
Yeah.
just so ready to like go to the earth, go to ground. And I'm feeling that
Plant
really
yourself. So
strongly.
on that note, then I love that. Plant yourself. I'm going to call my self-care time planting myself from now on, I
I
think,
love
because
that.
that is absolutely perfect and it makes my heart so happy. Um, one thing I wanted to ask before we can also ask like where to get the book and all of those things,
Yeah.
because I want to make sure our listeners slash your readers know where to find you. But also I would love to know what would be the like starting self-care practice that you would want everyone to start doing. Like if
Yeah.
you could recommend one from the book or just from your experience that you think would be the best that you wish everyone would do, what would it be?
Yeah. I have so much I want to say on this.
I know, I know. It's one of those like bag of worms. No,
I
it's
know.
supposed to be can
So,
of worms, but
Yeah.
whatevs.
Gotta be
okay.
more sustainable.
It's gonna sound kind of weird, but I'm actually gonna direct people to the very last self-care practice in the book for the
Mm-hmm.
one that I want people to kind of start with, even though I want them to start with the first practice. But I
Mhm.
think this last self-care practice is just so very important. And literally the self-care practice is radically accept this moment.
Mm.
Radically accept this moment. And the reason I think this is a really important place to start is because I think in some ways it encapsulates a lot of what we've kind of built up to this point. In order to get to a place of acceptance of this moment, it requires a certain level of nervous system regulation to begin with, to start off in acceptance. And the
Mm-hmm.
first few practices I share in this book really are about regulating the nervous system, letting ourselves move through the feelings of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn that this issue so naturally brings up in us. So once we let ourselves process what it is we're feeling and regulate ourselves back to like, it's okay that I feel fearful sometimes. It's okay that I feel rage about this sometimes. It's okay that sometimes it feels too much and I have to just lie on the couch and watch Netflix, like every now and then. Like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
right? Then we can get to this place of radical acceptance that helps us accept the situation we're in, accept that we are the creators of the problem, and we are also the creators of the solution. If we don't accept where we're at, how can we ever get someplace else? And this is the same when it comes to self-care too. I don't know about you guys, but I know I can have a tendency to go, when I'm feeling like something needs to change, I can have a tendency to go to shame first. And that never, ever, ever actually catalyzes change. It catalyzes a whole lot of like not feeling so great about yourself, but it doesn't actually get you to change. And unfortunately, I think for so many years, we have been operating under the system as if we just scare people enough, if we just shame them enough, we're going to change their behavior. How's that working out for us?
Yeah.
Like, really, how is that working out for us?
As a parent, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. As an adult, as someone who's even trying to reparent myself at time, you know, like it doesn't work. So coming back to a place of acceptance, coming back from that place of acceptance to even feel into what is working, right? Like when we think about the nervous system, we can think about how when we allow ourselves to orient to pleasure as opposed to always orienting to pain, we create more channels for change. The body wants to orient to pleasure more. We create more capacity to feel in both directions. This is from like a nervous system approach. It's the same thing with us with this earth, right? Yeah, it's not going to feel good to actually look and take accountability for where we're at. But when we do that, we also take note of everything we have at our disposal to help us get out of the situation. And I think it's so important for people to know that all the technologies that we need to address the situation, we do already have. The scientific consensus is there. The innovative technologies to shift things are there. There's even bioplastics out there already, friends, made from so many different sources that are completely biodegradable. I think there's some people who believe that in order for us to live sustainably, we're going to have to completely sacrifice convenience. First and foremost, there's certain levels of convenience that's probably going to be good for us to sacrifice. Let's be real, right? But that being said, I think we're barking up the wrong tree if we're going to be like, no, we have to get rid of convenience, because that's going to just get more people to be like, I don't want in on that, you know? I think it can be convenient to be sustainable. I think it can be convenient to actually close the loops on so many of our systems and cycles. In fact, it's completely inconvenient for us to live the way we're currently living. Is it convenient for us to have trash, literally islands of trash in the ocean? Is it convenient for us to be ingesting plastic into our own bodies because of the levels of trash we have all over the earth? Is it convenient for us to have to deal with poor air, poor soil, like none of it's convenience, but no one's addressing it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think comfort and convenience need to be disconnected from one another. So I think that's a very powerful thing to think about.
Yeah. I know I will be purchasing at least one copy of your book for myself and as gifts for others, because I think that some of the things you've outlined already just sound incredible and so applicable and fun that I can't wait to share it with people. And I think that that's one of the best responses that you did. You took this anxiety and you were like, I'm going to make it fun projects. Let's throw wildflower balls at things. And that's amazing. And I just want to thank you for the effort that you've put in. Thank your publishing company for pitching this idea to you and choosing you for it, because they did a good job. And I recommend everybody go out and get this book. Can you tell us the title of the book again and how people can find you?
Yes, of course. So the title of this book is Self-Care for Eco-Anxiety, 52 weekly practices for positive personal change to the power of nature. It took me a month to memorize that second part of this book title.
Sheesh, good job.
You can find this book wherever books are sold at this point. So you can find it at Book Depot. You can find it at Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, I think even Target.com. You can go to my website, ourinfinitenature.co to learn more about me, find me. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm the most active there, and you can find me there at Our Infinite Nature Rachael. Yeah, I think that's all the things.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm pretty sure we'll have the link to your socials and things in the description of the video version of this on YouTube. So check that out for the easy clickable way to get there.
And thank you so much, Raquel. Thank you for inspiring all of us. And we really wish you want to try to do the go make some magic with us. Do you want to give that a shot? See if we can also
are we
get a
doing it all
line.
together? Wait,
We're
hold
gonna
on.
try.
I'm a clarifier. So first, before we try, tell me what we're doing.
3, and then go. So it's 1, 2, 3, and go make some magic, right?
Oh, so we say and
after
first.
3. You don't say and. It's just you say it after 3.
1,
This is
2,
why we do
3.
such a bad job with it.
Go make some magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in that a cappella movie all of a sudden.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
No,
right.
no, no. Totally fair. I will say Krista's 1, 2, 3 will not match with my 1, 2, 3. So just know that going
We're
into
going
this
to get it
space.
out of sync. The viewers and
Okay.
listeners know this, and it's totally all right and perfect.
Yeah. And we're hoping, the whole goal is that we hope it does sync up. The chances,
Sometimes it does.
5%.
Why am I nervous? Why
It's
am
a
I
thing.
nervous?
Every
Okay.
you see me sit up straighter, so it's not just
Yeah.
you. This is exciting.
Okay, are we
Okay, I'm
ready?
ready.
We are
hope
ready.
you all go make some magic.
Magic.
Yeah.
We slow down to try to fit each other sometimes. And if you slow down, then I slow down more, which makes you have to slow down more. And it's hilarious. Thank you all. This was amazing.